Hello and welcome to Bedson and Coffey Unfiltered,
where we will be discussing fitness, lifestyle, healthy eating habits, relationships, gas station performance pills, answering romantic queries. You have anything else, Tyler? Is there anything? Do you need help with anything right now? Because I feel like I'm in a position where I can help you with it.
I mean, and everything else that we come across as we go. But you know how it's going to be, right?
It's going to be unfiltered.
Top of my head.
Yeah, but she sends videos of everything.
Everything. Yeah.
Yeah, she's always videoing everything.
You sent me some guy that lived up around there. Jake Willis.
Yeah, I think he goes to a different gym there.
Yeah, okay.
He messaged me when he was talking to me. And actually, that's something that I told him. So he said he had never worked with a coach. And I said, well, talk to coaches. I was like, if you plan on doing a show, that's a long-term relationship. Yeah. So, you want to make sure that you get along with them good and so on. And he and I had a good conversation, but he said, I was, thinking about doing this, and this. And I suggested, I was like, well, talk. I said, well, yeah, talk to coaches, because he'd ask about that, how, to go about determining who he wanted to work with. And I said, well, talk to them.
Yeah.
And I actually mentioned you.
Yeah.
And you and him had a good conversation. And
I
think you messaged me after that.
He's lost
seems like
40 pounds. He's gotten super lean.
Yeah.
He's a little crazy, but I mean, you got to be for this, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean,
if you aren't, then I'm like, oh, you're gonna fail.
Yeah, you've got it helps.
Yeah,
I ain't saying it's required, but it sure helps.
Oh yeah, you got a little bit something wrong with you.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of having something wrong with you,
come on.
So we have Andrew Tindal with us today. Andrew is an exceptional powerlifter, and then he recently did his first bodybuilding show.
I did.
So big athletic background there, and then you've done I don't know how many powerlifting shows at this point. Several.
I couldn't even tell you.
Yeah.
I mean, I powerlifted for 10 years, so probably 14, 15, something like that.
Yeah. And I think I seen you the first time I seen you. You broke a pretty big record in Tennessee. I remember you were at the it was an SPF meet in Gatlinburg, I think.
Yeah.
That's the first time I seen you squat.
That was a West Side versus Cell Block meet. And they were setting those two gyms up to kind of go head to head. And that was I didn't know about the Tennessee record or anything, but that was the meet that I finally squatted 800 at. That's been a long-term goal for a long time. That was a fun meet, man. I ain't gonna lie. That was a pretty sweet meet. That's one that I thought I was finally going to total 2,000 and then dropped my second deadlift. My damn thumbs tore, and I was like, oh, hellfire.
Yeah.
But you'll have that on them big jobs already. Yeah, that's just part of it.
So you said that they had like two gyms go against each other?
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty sick.
Yeah, West Side
I didn't know they did it like that.
Mm-hmm. They don't a lot of times, but especially in multiply and stuff like that, sometimes they'll set something up like that, especially like when Lou was still alive.
Yeah.
Lou would always set up, because, I mean, they live and die by competition.
Oh, yeah.
And going head to head.
But now you squatted that raw.
Yeah, it was in wraps.
Yes.
Yeah, it was raw
you
wraps.
squatted 800 in sleeves, right?
No, stop. No.
No?
So 740.
Okay.
740 is what I've got in sleeves so far.
That's very impressive. But yeah, I remember Lou was there, and I chatted with him for a little bit. I mean, everybody talks about how he is. He was super nice. Whenever I chatted to him, he was real nice. That meet, they had a little person.
Yeah, he's awesome. He fights too. You know that?
He grapples.
Yes.
He looks exactly like my friend Tom DeBlas.
Really?
He looks like a miniature version of Tom DeBlas.
He's just a little person.
He's a little person.
Yeah.
And dude, it scared the fuck out of me, because they had these blocks for him to warm up on. So he was standing on blocks because the mono wouldn't come down far enough.
Yeah.
Monolift is just a squat machine, But you unrack the bar, it moves out of the way, so you can just squat without walking it out. And it didn't come down far enough for him. He was standing on blocks, and it was on carpet in that warm-up area. And dude, he had, I don't know how much on there, and one of those scooted, and I was like, oh God, dude, I'm about to see a little person do the splits with 800 pound on his back or something.
We're usually going to see it move just kind of like that.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I mean, dude, he's a freak, because the guy that wrapped me also got into wrapping him too.
I mean, that's a lot sometimes.
Yeah.
It
is a lot.
I mean, some things 2 inches make a big difference in.
Oh yeah.
I imagine with the biomechanics he has too, it's probably like equivalently hard for him to do that.
It's insanely hard for him.
Yeah.
I mean, because you got that, like if that muscle's shorter, it's only going to be able to
I always see
contract
people
so
like
hard.
talking shit about some of that stuff, and I'm like, yeah, it's probably still as challenging for him.
Oh,
Oh, for sure.
In
you still got to hold it.
comparison, yeah.
You still got to hold that weight. I mean, that's all powerlifting is how much can you hold and move.
Yeah. I mean,
You put me under 740 pounds, I'm going to
just
die.
just walk out with it and re-rack it, right?
Yeah.
Like just that stress on your skeletal system and your body.
Oh, yeah.
Jesus Christ, it feels terrible.
I mean, you remember that meet I squatted the 740 at in December? Like I don't remember coming out of the bottom of my opener, I was passing out and then going down on the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then once that broke loose, it was like 740. I was fine.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
So,
Yeah.
question for you. With you just did your first bodybuilding show. Okay. So, you did really well. Like, you came in great shape. Conditioning for your first show was like lights out. It's awesome.
Cool.
How would you say that the ability to be under that heavy weight when you transition to a bodybuilding style training helped you kind of progress faster than others?
It's hard to say, honestly, because, you know, being under that heavy weight, it's totally different than the style that I was training for bodybuilding.
Yeah.
You know, for powerlifting, I was more or less concerned with mechanically, how can I move weight as efficiently as I can? I always describe it like every time I'm doing one of the power lifts, I'm shooting a free throw. So I'm practicing the same movement over and over again. Whereas in bodybuilding, Eli helped me a lot with just trying to make that connection with the muscle and get it to contract. Now, I think that experience is going to carry over into powerlifting a lot more than the powerlifting is going to carry over into the bodybuilding, because I can like just getting sort of back into some of those movements now, like I can feel stuff engage a lot better.
Yeah.
And I have almost like more body awareness of like, okay, my lats tight.
You've developed a lot more kinesthetic awareness. Like the one conversation we had. So a lot of times when I explain to people, like with powerlifting style training, like whenever you're moving something with powerlifting technique, you're trying to be as efficient as possible.
Yep.
You're trying to get yourself in a mechanically advantageous posture and move in a manner that gives you the most recruitment of muscle so that you can move the maximum weight safely.
Yeah.
With bodybuilding, sometimes we will do things that is totally inefficient. You know, like compared to like whenever we were doing the incline and stuff, you know, trying to do so in a manner that's going to really activate the pecs instead of bringing in everything. You know, you think of like a typical bodybuilding, think lateral raises.
Yeah.
There's nowhere in real world application you would pick up something heavy that way. No. So you do that in a way that is, again, inefficient for practical purposes, but you do that to target a specific muscle. And that requires that you have such kinesthetic awareness to turn muscles on without taking work away from that muscle by using others, so on. So, you know, I think you made a good point there too, is like once you find that and you really become so connected with, you know, how things feel when they're activated and not, and connecting and getting your mind in that muscle, it really does carry over, because you feel when that posture changes. You feel when that.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, I especially feel it in my lats, because I always had a really hard time just developing my back and feeling my lats contract for whatever reason. I think a lot of guys have issues with that.
Yeah.
But now, like in my bench press, I can sort of more or less feel my lat, and I try to flex it to a point where my humerus is sort of like sinking into my lat, and I get a lot more control in the bottom and, you know, coming out of the hole on a bench. So, I mean, I think ultimately, you know, I'm going to be a better powerlifter for having done the bodybuilding. And I also think that, you know, being under heavy load does create dense muscle.
Oh, yeah.
But with that being said, you know, when I started prep, or not really started prep, but in March I was like 260, and then we started prep probably in April, May, something like that. And I thought, man, there's no way I'm going to get on stage and be any less than like 200 pounds. I was like, I'm huge. And it turns out, no.
When you lose all the fat and you lose all the water, it's crazy how much you can lose. And it's wild to me, because I remember you as a powerlifter. And when I saw you starting the prep for bodybuilding, I remember even messaging Eli. I was like, he'll be good if he gets in shape. And sure enough, that was correct. But what's really cool, what you said, is like how, you know, powerlifting technically went to bodybuilding. It made you a better powerlifter. And what I've noticed is I get a lot of clients that started as powerlifters, and they come to me and they want to do a bodybuilding show. And what makes them progress very fast is they're not scared to get under some weight.
No.
And it's basically just switching up their rep ranges. So you know, you're used to being under 800 pounds. So then you go and you do, 405
Right.
for a set of 12. And you're like, oh, I can do that.
Right.
Ain't nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to grow extremely fast.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like you said, when you go back to powerlifting, it makes you a better powerlifter because you are able to control and use those muscles that you needed to and develop them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that's spot on.
And I think too, like some people that if they've only done one or the other, it's hard to appreciate what it takes to do, the other that you've been on, but man, I'll tell you, it's whenever you have somebody that's willing to go to failure or, get under a squat and, sink down and hit depth with it with a weight that, it's uncertain if you're coming back up or not. That takes a certain amount of balls to get under that and do that, a little intestinal fortitude. And it's the same concept whenever you go into that deep water with rep ranges. Yeah. Like, okay, like if I tell you we're going to do this for 2, all right. Yeah. If I tell you we're going to do this till you can't do no more. Well, that's different. And that's something that you don't always, it takes a lot of people a bit of time to transition into. But Andrew out of the gate was like, all right, let's have it. Yeah. And like attacking all those sets the same way. So like something that I was really, really happy with him. And it's just that same mindset. Like if a lot of times you tell a guy, I want you to do a set of 5, he'll pick something he can barely do for 3. Yeah. But if you tell him to do a set of 15, he'll pick something he can do for 20 and stop at 15. And that's not how this works, And but yeah, man, you start squatting until you see stars, and you got 3 more reps, and you got it or you don't. Are you going to be scared and rack it? Or are you going to try to get that extra work in?
Yeah. You're going to find out if you got it or not.
That's what separates people, though.
It is. It really is. And I think that's something that doesn't get talked about enough is like pain threshold. Oh yeah. And just mental tenacity, like. And if you don't have that in powerlifting, you just don't have it. Yeah. But with bodybuilding and stuff, even still, like if you don't have that mental fortitude, and just that honestly being willing to go in and say, okay, I'm gonna do this next rep. I may fail on it or not.
One of my favorite things to do when I'm training somebody in person or training with them is like we'll be doing, say, a set of hack squats. And when it starts getting hard and I notice the reps start moving slower and they're really struggling, I'm like, all right, 5 more. Because that's where it's you need to be doing those hard ass reps, the ones you think you can't get. I remember someone will look at me and they'll be like, oh, hell no, I can't do it. And then I'm like, I got you. I'm right here.
Let's go.
Okay, sure enough, 5 reps later, they're like, oh my God. Yeah. That was the hardest thing I ever did. But you know what? Then they grow muscle. Yeah.
It's not meant to tickle.
No, hell no.
And growth is uncomfortable. It just is what it is.
Yes. Like your body adapts to stress. Yes. The Wolff's Law states that the body can and will adapt to stress. It's in reference to bone density, but that applies across the board. I mean, the fucking calluses on your hand are an example. You cause enough stress to the body and it'll adapt. Yep. Are you lifting to the point that you're stressing your body enough to actually create to force an adaptation? Yeah. That's what it comes down to.
So what were your thoughts on the bodybuilding process? Like, I know you went from a sport where you kind of, who wins because of who wins. Like you go in there, if you have the best lift and it's counted, you win.
There's a bit more, it's a bit more objective.
And now,
objective versus
subjective.
Yeah.
How did you feel going from that to that?
Man, it was one of those things where going into it, I really didn't have any expectation. I told myself right off the rip, like I'm going into something that's completely new. So placings, how I look, like I can make sure that I show up at my best, and somebody else is going to dictate, what that ranks amongst who shows up. Yeah. So to me, it was, let's just show up, let's do our best, place where you place. And I was like, man, I'm gonna go have a good time. Yeah. I was like, I'm gonna show up, I'm gonna have fun. I haven't cut my teeth in this enough to not care, but to really care where I place. Yeah. I really care about showing up, making sure I'm showing up at the best that I can, collecting data, me and Eli, so that we can make sure for the next time we can improve upon that. Yeah. But I didn't want to, because I won't be an asshole to go like, oh man, I'm going to show up at this first one and I'm just going to kill everybody. Yeah, it's like, that's just not realistic, man. Like, know who you are. Like, that'd be like one of those guys coming to a powerlifting meet and be like, buddy, I'm going to take you down. It's like, but hell, if you do, I'll shake your hand. But You may not. You may not. So, yeah, I was more focused on making sure that, you know, I walked out there, I had a good time, I got comfortable with it, I understood the process of the order of how things were going to happen.
Yeah.
Because like in powerlifting, that's a pretty important thing in terms of like getting your timing down for warming up, and then attempt selection on first, seconds, and thirds, and knowing kind of like, you know, what numbers to call and how much rest you're going to have between attempts. So it was little things like that. And then I really enjoyed the posing aspect of it. Because normally, like when I walk out of powerlifting meet, my first thought is like, damn, I'm fixing to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
I was like, but hell, I would walk out on stage. I was like, this isn't going to hurt a bit.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm naked in front of like a bunch of people. I was like, but hell, that ain't no problem.
But they paid to see you that way.
Yeah, they paid to see you
So
that way.
yeah,
That's a first. Usually I'm paying. So anyway, no, man, I really did enjoy it, and I'm excited to do it again at some point.
I like your attitude going into it too, because
Absolutely.
you, like you said, you can't control the outcome. You can only control your controllables.
Right.
And obviously you did that. Like you came in the best you possibly could have been that day.
Mm-hmm.
And then what you're supposed to do with bodybuilding, like you said, is you get that data, you get that feedback, and you get better.
Right.
And you understand that, and you understood that early.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people go into it and they're like, they do have that mentality of like,
They're the next big thing.
I'm going to become pro and I'm going to be an Olympian.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, you got to pay your dues just like anything else.
Yeah. And you know, having that approach, you'll feel a lot better after the show regardless.
Oh yeah.
You know, you know, don't set yourself up to be let down.
No, it was like my last show. I'm a middleweight bodybuilder. I know I'm not going to win an overall on most occasions if somebody shows up and they're heavyweight or super and they're bigger. So me, I'm like, all right, well, I can control winning my class, but I can't control anything after this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And, you know, just being realistic and having that approach and realizing that it's you know, this is a sport that takes a lot of years.
Yes.
You know, and, again, for most people, it's going to take several years. It takes a long time to build that much tissue.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, and we had a lot of tissue coming in, you know, with his background in powerlifting. It was a matter of honestly refining some things, you know, like he had made the comment about his lats and so on, just helping him find that in his training.
That's something you don't find out where your weak points are really until you get that lean.
It really is, man. Like
you find out, you're like, oh, okay.
You start chipping away, you know, and you see what's under that. It's okay, you know. And we had been fortunate enough, he and I had worked together for a good while, and he would do all of his powerlifting training himself, and then I would lay out his nutrition. And then in the off season, we would work together on his hypertrophy training and so on. You know, but we would lean down, you know, and not necessarily get stage lean, but get in a position where he would be able to perform well, and we could, you know, go through a hypertrophy phase and stuff and do well. And, you know, we began doing that. And that's when we started to see, you know, how much potential he really had. Yeah. And then, you know, you got me kind of just every now and then just saying something about, you know, him having potential to do bodybuilding.
Dude, don't stop.
It's how you get it. You got to put it in somebody's ear though. And then you start thinking about it. And you're like, might be something good to
It was
try.
fun. I distinctly remember a bunch of times like driving down the road with my wife, we'd be talking about it. You know, I bet Eli's going to be like, man, you should do a bodybuilding show. I guarantee it. No one in my head, it was like me telling myself like, all right, you need to just do it. And I was like, I bet he's going to get on me and tell me to do a bodybuilding show. And then finally it was like, you know, just some random Tuesday in April, I was just like, hey man, I think I'd like to do Knox Classic. And then you were just totally honest. You're like, buddy, you're fat. we don't have time for that. He's like, I can get you ready for it, but you're not going to like it. Yeah. Then you brought up Louisville, and I was like, yeah, we'll go up there and do that and take the time and do it right.
Yeah. And you know, to that point too, you know, the maturity from his standpoint, you know, him having been an elite athlete in another sport, he understands what it takes, you know, and a lot of people want to jump into a prep and it's like, well, this is your first time prepping. You know, you've not been down this road. So let's give you as much time as we can.
Exactly. More time, the better.
And I had all the confidence in the world in him, and I still do, you know, but knowing that just for the sake of, you know, this uncharted territory, it's like you want to give somebody as a coach, you want to give them every possible thing you can to make them successful. Yeah. And rushing a prep is never a good idea. Well, and
that's always appreciated when you are honest with somebody and they trust you and believe you. Because I'll have people contact me and then they'll be like, I want to do a show in 12 weeks. And I'm like, you got 55 pounds to lose in 12 weeks. That's in like, you're asking me to do something like a miracle.
Yeah.
And you being able to be like, okay, well, you're right. Let's push it back.
Yeah. And that honesty and transparency goes both ways.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like your coach can be honest and transparent, but if the athlete's not,
No.
you know, it's not a one-sided thing, man. And that's why, you know, like he and I've worked together for quite some time. And you know, again, that relationship that you build, like I know if he tells me something, that's exactly the way it was.
Yep.
You know, I don't have to start looking through these unknown variables and trying to, problem solve and stuff to try and figure out, okay, well, what did he leave out or anything else? And that's why, like, anything that we've attempted to do, he's done exceptionally, because it's just that mindset, man. Like, like we talked about the other day, just living like a dog, doing the same things day in and day out, eating the same things.
That's all it is. And you get linear progress, because some people, they start with me and I'm just like, you know, they're not telling the complete truth on things. And your coach can tell when you're not doing something correctly. It's kind of obvious at this point, but it's hard to sit there and call somebody out and be like, what are you doing wrong? Unless they tell you. Yeah. So, you know, when you have that relationship built with somebody, you know, the communication's on point, you know, everything's going to work and how it should. It's usually a very smooth process.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, that's just it. And you had mentioned once you leaned down and you'd had a lot bigger beard, and you'd trimmed your beard and everything else. Almighty. People at work started worrying about him.
Like, start thinking you got on sick or something.
Hell, they thought I was going to start stealing catalytic converters. I was like, buddy, they stuck me with the electrician. They had me running conduit and copper, and they were like watching the copper and making sure it wasn't running off. I was like, guys, I'm just hungry. I ain't falling off the beaten path or anything.
That's hilarious.
He texts me and he's like, dude, they thought I done fell off the straight and narrow.
That's exactly what they said. I got a guy that works for Toyota, and he was like, did the same show you did.
Yeah.
And he was like 2-3 weeks out, and he had started this job for this prep.
Randomly
and they called him in, and they're like, are you all right, man? He's like, oh no, I'm just doing a bodybuilding show, guys. Like, oh, I'm good. Like, I'm good.
Dude, I mean, I had the safety guy come to my boss, and basically he's like, man, do we need to set up a random for Andrew? And I was like, it's not that random if you're going to bring it up. But yeah, no, it was, you know, I get done, and mechanic I work with, Terry, he's a good boy, and he was like, man, I hope you don't do that again. You just look terrible and you're just miserable. And I was just like, Terry, you're gonna retire here pretty soon. Yeah, I'm probably gonna do it again, but you won't see it.
God,
that's great.
It's unreal to see how much you change, though, because like, you do look like an entirely different person when you cut down that much. It's almost insane to see. Like, my face almost looks skeletal, and like I just look like real different.
I
look like a little goblin person when I'm lean. That's weird.
You're always adorable to me.
Thanks, man.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So now, and there's a lot of aspects of bodybuilding that, I mean, if you've never done it, seem kind of weird. You know, the shaving and the spray tan and being in your trunks and all that good stuff.
Almighty. Yeah, buddy, I don't know that you could pay me to shave again. Like, I'll do it, but I'm still itchy. Like, this is
weird. The first time you do, it's always strange, because like, it's like you go to sleep at night and you're under the covers. You're like, wow, the fuck feel it. It's weird. It's just different.
Yeah. But now you shaved your entire body even before bodybuilding, right?
When I got into it is when I started doing it.
You didn't just do it for fun?
No, I didn't just do it for fun.
Well, there's a lot of sports that do.
I had a lot of hair, like a lot of chest hair and stuff like that. Now I find myself like, I got a bunch of guys that don't shave until it's closer to show, and I'm like, I can't fucking see what's going on, man. Like, your quads look good as hairy. Like, I can't see any detail, can't see any muscle.
I knew a guy that trained in Japan, and he said that the sumo wrestlers shave their legs.
Was that for performance or?
No, I think it's so people don't confuse them with feminists.
Hell, fuck.
So
that's fucked.
That's what I said. That's what I said.
Yeah.
You know, but it's the you had mentioned the posing, and I remember us talking about it so much going into it. Like, I think people, they don't realize it's not what you have, it's what you can show. And especially for first time competitors, I think posing is almost an afterthought sometimes.
God, yeah.
And you see so many guys get beat simply on posing, and they may look better than the guy that beats them.
Yep. So one way to piss me off is if you lose because of posing.
Oh my God.
Fucking
because
irate.
There's so many things you don't have control of. There's so many things you don't have control of, and that is something you do. You know,
I mean, that's something I did after every training session. It was like, all right, I'm going to set up my little tripod. I'm going to go to the back. I was like, I'm going to run through all my mandatories 1 or 2 times and then just make sure it looks right.
Well, what's the point of competing if you can't show what you did?
Yeah,
You know,
I mean, it's like building a race car and never learning how to drive.
Yeah, it's fucking nuts.
I mean,
you see it all the time though. Like you'll see guys get on stage. I'm like, damn, that guy looks pretty good if he could fucking pose.
Yeah. Well, and that was something I noticed too. Is like the difference is that I should have done a better job of figuring out classic posing versus posing for just bodybuilding. It's like I felt like I was way better at posing for bodybuilding than I was at classic in terms of like what I was doing with my hips and trying to make my waist look smaller.
I think you're better built for bodybuilding though, and that's kind of what I had to realize. I tried classic once, man. I had a dude next to me doing the splits, and I was like, "Oh fuck, I don't belong here." Like,
buddy, I'm telling you, that was one thing I learned between bodybuilding and powerlifting is it's like Deftones and Tool is to bodybuilding what Slipknot and Disturbed is to powerlifting. I was like, I've never heard I watched you change like 45 times while they all walk out there. I was like, all right, buddy, we get it.
That's why you but you posing to Fancy was a nice palate cleanser between the death.
That was hilarious.
Oh, dude. I mean, I got
you got to do it twice too, which made I was like, man, I missed the first one half of it. And I was like, I was like, he gets to do it again, right? And he's like, oh yeah, he'll be back out for classic.
That's right.
Well, I got a little fancy for that, and then I got a Big John. Big John was the classic one.
Man.
That was a nice one. Yeah, because I just can't, man. I'm just not an artsy fartsy kind of guy. Like I'm gonna go out there and have a good time. Yeah. So like if I want to pose to Fancy, it's like, buddy, I'm posing to Fancy. We've been at meets where like we've they're playing metal, and then I'll have them switch music to damn Fancy, or that's a night that the lights went out in Georgia. It's like where the hell did this come from? It's like I don't know. That's just what I want to listen to. It gets me fired up.
Right. There you go. Yeah, and like when the quad stomped to "Here's Your One Chance, Fancy, Don't Let Me Down." I mean, I don't know why they didn't just end the show right there.
Honestly. That was like
when I got
to mic drop.
I got to do that pose down. I got to time it up with that. What was they playing? Oh, Here Comes the Boom. I was like, there ain't no way. And then I start shaking it, and I was like, all right, and here it comes. And I stomped it down. I was like, oh, dude, this is great. It's like the coolest feeling in the world. I was like, and it doesn't hurt at all.
Yeah. I don't feel like my nervous system's about to shut down.
Oh, God, that was funny, too. Because I always, obviously, if you ever watch a video of me squat or deadlift or breathe, I'm usually shaking a little bit. And so I'm like walking up and down those stairs at the venue, and everybody's like, man, you're fixing to go down. You're going to have to eat a rice cake or something. I'm like, no, buddy, this is just me normally. Like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, buddy, I don't know. I've been to doctors. It's probably something pinched from football or rugby.
I remember, we were watching you pose backstage, and I was like, you just got to quit shaking. He's like, he can't.
Yeah, buddy, if I could, I would.
That's something you go like tell the judges ahead of time, like, hey, by the way.
That was some feedback I got from the judge right afterwards.
Yeah, because they're going to start thinking it's like posing conditioning.
Yeah.
And in reality, it's just like, you can't really control it.
Cramping up or blood sugar or something crazy.
Like I'd go to like squeeze my hamstrings and glutes on like a back double, and I could just start. I was like, damn, let off the clutch, buddy.
Yeah.
He had a squat and he racked it. And when he came out, like he started shaking real bad. And that was when you went out, right? Like,
I was out at that point.
Yeah. You went to a knee, I think. Yeah. But he had sent that to me. And when I'd shared it, I put some like Pentecostal gospel music in the background.
It's me and Jesus got our own thing.
Yeah, he about took a running spell.
It was bad, man. I'm telling you. I remember like getting a knee and like coming to and just looking up, and everybody, you good? And I'm like, I'm fine. Did I get it? Because I need to tell them what to take on a second. They're just like I got to. We're not done. That was like the first thing we're doing. I was like, we've got a bunch of spotters up here. I was like, what's the worst thing that can happen?
Yeah,
it's wild when that happens and the guy's equipped. We were in Knoxville.
Oh,
and dude,
where that nose torque came over the top.
The one I'm thinking of is the guy had took like 9 something, and he was suited. And I don't know if you're familiar with like squat suits and stuff.
Yeah.
Like you can stand them up, like they're stiff. And when you put that on, the only way you can sit down is with that weight on your back.
Yeah.
Like you're not bending. Your knees are wrapped. You're wearing briefs. You're wearing all this stuff. But he gets down and like blacks out at the bottom. Well, drops the bar off his back, and that suit straightens, and he just catapults
in the crowd
into the first row.
Is there a video of this?
Probably.
That's great.
There was that. I think you were at that meet too, where there was a guy and his wife, and he kept passing out like halfway up. So he did it the first time. The spotters grabbed him, and I don't think they passed it. So he did it again, and the same thing happened. So it was his third attempt. So he had to get this one and stay awake to not bomb. Well, he starts coming up out of the bottom, and he starts going out, and his wife like jumps over a judge with a bottle of nose ammonia, sticks under his nose, and he just comes alive and stands right up. And he didn't get the rep. It stays in the meat. I was like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Jesus Christ.
She didn't physically touch him, so
Didn't touch him, didn't help him.
yeah.
It was wild, man. Some of those old equip meets they're a sideshow unto themselves. They're an absolute spectacle, man. They're just so fun. And we'd always show up with like a cooler of beer and just hang out, and it was just a damn party. It was fun, man. I used to love going to them meets. Still do, but
yeah. Equipped is a bit different, like as far as just the vibe and everything.
Oh yeah, because when I got into it, that was the main deal. Was everybody was there to see the equipped guys, so they really ran the show, and they're all cool guys, man. They just love to lift weights. That's just, it is what it is. Anyway,
so do you feel in less pain now that you don't powerlift as much? Will you do another powerlifting meet?
Yeah, I got to get 2K.
Okay,
I got to check 2K off.
Yeah,
that's fair.
He's knocked on that like on several occasions.
Yeah. I've come real close a bunch of times, and I honestly, like, I'm to the point now where when we were coming down in prep, there was like a sweet spot in weight where I was like, I could feel my hips better. I felt like I was moving better, and I was like, okay, this is about where we need to be. Depending on how leverage has changed as we put muscle on. But anyway, I was like, if I can just get here, then the way that I look at it, I can break those 3 lifts down into pretty manageable chunks. As long as, I can progress. I really need to just progress my deadlift. If I can get my deadlift where it needs to be, and then taper the fatigue on my squat, don't need to squat as much, get my bench back where it needs to be, then I think more or less it won't be easy, but I think it's definitely achievable.
And you'll be at a lighter weight probably doing it too.
I may be a 220. We'll see. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where if I feel like if I'm 230 and, me and Eli will figure it out. But if I feel like I want to risk a weight cut to make 220, then I can. But normally I'm a 242 competitor.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at this point, the weight class doesn't necessarily matter to me. It's just getting that number. Yeah. Yeah, I'd really like to have that. I'd really like to have an 800-pound pull. That way I can say I squatted, benched 5, and pulled 8, or squatted 8, benched 5, pulled 8. To me, those are all pretty decent numbers. And then done a bodybuilding show, and then more or less, I'll probably just keep on with bodybuilding because I do feel like my joints feel better.
Oh yeah,
all the time. So
so like incorporating a lot of the tempo work and stuff. During the hypertrophy phases and even in your prep and stuff, that's a lot different from what a lot of people think about. But that's carried over well too, I think, for you.
Oh yeah.
Even with the power side of it, that holding strength whenever you're moving stuff slowly. And I have a lot of grapplers do that too. But you're moving that weight slowly and you're building that isometric strength, and it's easier on your joints because the weight isn't so excessive, but the amount of stress on the muscles is incredible, from moving it slowly like that through those slow eccentrics and so on, pauses.
To me, it's all about, are you holding that weight? Are you in control, or is it laying on you? If it's laying on you, then you can't be as powerful as you just absolutely holding that weight. And then, from a bodybuilding perspective, that's just more, I don't know, but to me, it seems like there's more tension on the muscle at that point. And if there's more tension, there's more room for growth.
Yeah.
Is what I would think.
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite training styles now that I've been incorporating a lot more of is more cluster sets and rest pause sets.
I do a lot of that.
Those are probably my favorites. So if anybody doesn't know what that is, like a cluster set example, on a pec deck for, just an example's sake, if we do like 6 reps with a moderate weight, then you would hold in the stretch position for 10 seconds. Do 6 more reps, hold in the stretch position for 10 seconds, and do 6 more reps. Very challenging. Forces you to hold isometric holds. I mean, it's just a different way to do things, and I've found that really works well for a lot of athletes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And multiple ways of going about it too. Instead of doing 4 sets of 10, doing 10 sets of 4, shorter rest periods.
Yeah.
The first couple sets seem like, okay, this isn't a big deal.
Oh yeah, and then you start doing it.
Oh yeah, and you get to like set 6 and 7. You're like, I don't know if I'm getting 10 of these.
I was training with one of my guys at Ford's the other day, and so he's trying to grow his arms. So I showed him one of the old school things I learned, where it was use easy bar curl, and you do 7 sets of 7, with a 10-second rest in between. But you
holding that bar, never put it down.
Hold the bar,
horrible.
never put it down.
Hurts.
Oh man, you're sitting there like, fuck. Oh my god. Oh my god. I mean, it's a mental
With
thing as much
barely
as
any weight.
Yeah, you can use like 10 pounds each side, honestly, and you'd probably be fine.
Oh yeah.
But I remember he got done with that, and next day messaged me. He's like, I've never had my arms this sore.
Oh yeah.
This dude's got like 21-inch arms. His arms are very good, but it's kind of crazy to see like him doing that and struggling.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I guarantee it.
Yeah.
Me and my buddy, we did something similar to that. He called it dueling pianos. It was like, okay, you take it easy, curl bar, and I do one, give it to him.
Oh,
he does one. And then you go all the way up to 2, and then what goes up's got to come back down. So then you go 9, 8, 10, all the way back down.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, I was smoked after that.
Yeah. Me and Colby, we used to do Hellcentrics, and you'd go back and forth, and it's similar, but like, so you would curl, and then once you reached failure with the curls, the person would assist you to the top, and then you would hold it.
Yeah.
And then they would just slightly overload you to where they would pull it down.
Yeah. And you had to fight it.
And you had to fight it and make that eccentric last as long as possible. And then I'd help you back up, and then we'd go again until you completely had the eccentric failure.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't hold it no more.
It reminds me of kind of me and my old roommate from college used to do arm pump before we'd go out to the bars when I was like 21.
Yeah.
We used a towel, and he'd sit there and I'd do curls with it. And he'd be like, oh, and then push it down.
Working his triceps while you worked your biceps.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How did you guys get arm pump again?
We were just using a towel,
Yeah, you were.
It sounds strange.
Western grip?
Western grip. I used a neutral on them.
Oh, okay. Well, Western grip leaves the thumb unencumbered for exploring.
Hellfire.
But yeah, man, like anything like that, like set, extenders and so on.
Yeah.
Any of that, man.
Set
like
extenders, hell.
There you go.
There's like so many different intensifiers you can do, and there's ones I've really started to like I remember back when I first started, it was a lot of drop sets, triple drop sets, things like that. You still see like some of the top Olympians doing those, like probably don't need to, but Hottie, I remember he does that set with the Smith machine where he starts with 6 plates aside, and they go down to 5, then 4, then 3, then 2, then 1. He just keeps going and going and going. And you're like, holy shit. So
I would do a lot of forced reps.
Yeah.
And still do. Like sometimes on some stuff, I'll just do 1 set of everything I possibly got and then add 4 reps to it. Controlled eccentrics and stuff. But like, say I hit failure here, you give me just enough assistance to get it together. Then I control it back down. I come up, I come as far as I can. You give me just enough assistance.
Just a little bit, just get the rep.
Just to get it finished. Yeah. They just 4 strips, like
you got a good training partner. It's you can get a lot out of it.
Absolutely.
If they understand when you're actually starting to fail. They don't want to give too much assistance, but just enough.
There's a skill to spotting.
Yes.
There is a skill to spotting, and
I don't trust many people with it.
No.
I look around the gym sometimes. I'm like, well, fuck, I can't do that today. Like, and it's, it's just for my own safety most occasions.
There's a skill to spotting somebody with like heavy, big compound movements, like knowing when something goes wrong and when to help them to get it off of them for prevention of injury. Then also for the sake of hypertrophy, it's like what I was talking about there. If somebody gives you too much assistance, they've took work away from you.
Exactly.
So there's a skill to that.
Yeah. I always use like a 2-finger approach. So you know what I mean though. It's just like a barbell. It's barely enough force where I'm not helping them fully with the rep, but it's enough to give them that extra little bit, especially in that.
Just keep the bar moving.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really what I try to teach people whenever I'm teaching this spot as well.
It's I mean, it's when you think about it, it's fairly simple. If there's 100 pounds on the bar, for me to lift it means I have to exert more than 100 pounds of force. Yeah. For me to hold it means I'm exerting exactly 100, and for me to lower it means I'm exerting less than 100. Yeah. The closer to 100 I exert on the way down, the slower it moves. Yeah. If I exert nothing, it falls. So if I get stuck, that means that I'm just being able to exert enough to hold it. So all you have to do, you can add 1 pound of assistance and it's going to move. Yep. If you add 50, it moves easily. Yeah. And then now I've lost that work. Another thing I think people forget, and this is common, is whenever
they're trying to go up in weight, I think they need to learn a lot from like Olympic lifters and power lifters. You can go up by the 2.5s and the 5-pound weights.
Yes.
Those are super useful. When I see so many people all the time, they're sending me training videos and they're like going up only by 25s or 45s. And I'm like, yeah, you got to remember these 2.5s, 5s, and 10s are still progressions. And that's where you can get a lot of muscle mass is by, you know, 1 week you're doing 225, the next week you do 230.
I think if you're a powerlifter that's coming into bodybuilding too, you almost need to, in your mind, sandbag some of your numbers and make sure that you're performing these new movements correctly
with your muscle,
making that connection with the muscle. Because if you're not, then I mean, you're going to end up using everything but the muscle.
I've seen that a lot. I've had some switch from powerlifting to bodybuilding. When they first start, they're kind of doing like a pop, lock, and drop it on a squat. And I'm like, ain't get nothing out of that. They're trying to go down and fight their way out.
Right.
And I'm like, you need to control it. You learn to actually use the muscle in each rep.
Yeah, I was living in I was in prep for my first show. It was 2014, and I was in Mobile, and I was working with a gentleman named Mike Horn. He's since passed away, but he was my coach at that time in Mobile. And I was lifting at his gym, and he said, "That's too heavy." And I said, in my mind, I thought, well, I'm moving it, you know, like it's. And he said, "That's too heavy." And I was still very new to things, and I thought, well, I'm moving it assertively, you know. And he dialed it back, and he started moving through things. And it's like you can lift weight that you can't feel. Yeah, like you can get it heavy enough that your body's going to adjust, you know, and you can't feel it in that muscle because you're having to have so much help. You know, from other muscles. And that was a concept that I had to, you know, grasp there. And that really, you know, my game just jumped a bunch from understanding that simple concept. Was like, okay, well, I can move it, but can I feel it? Yeah. You know, like, am I getting out of this what I want, or am I just simply moving it? Yeah.
Something you got to learn over time. You know, I've done the same thing when I first started.
Everybody does.
Yeah, you know, I'm moving weight, but I'm not using my muscle for it. I'm just kind of, you know, using leverage. I'm using all sorts of different joints and ligaments to just try to push it. And it's just not doing anything.
When you don't know and you watch, you just see people moving weight. You don't think about, you know, everything that's going on inside.
Oh, yeah.
It makes those old videos from like the 80s and 90s even more impressive too. When you realize, like, you know, you see Ronnie squatting 7 and 8, you're realizing that he's like making that connection.
Oh, he's going slow.
It's like, man, it's a huge difference between, like, you know, you see a guy come in and just move 600 pounds. You're like, damn, he's strong. Like, why aren't his legs bigger? It's well, because he's not made that connection to build. A, he probably doesn't have the time, and B, he hasn't, you know, made the connection with his muscles. No. Like, I've squatted 800 pounds. I don't look like Ronnie Coleman. No. Like, it's just is what it is.
Yeah, it's different muscle fibers and all that too.
But there's a great connection there too, as far as that hypertrophy training does carry over later. Oh yeah. You know, you think about, like, well, what happens when you add more muscle? Well, now you can get a lot stronger on top of that. Oh, hell yeah. You know, so the, you know, one hand washes the other. I feel like, you know, the hypertrophy training in the off seasons and adding tissue, you know,
that's the main thing I see a lot of powerlifters skip out on, is that accessory style work. It's the first thing that seems to go out the window. And I think that's what also causes a lot of injuries.
Oh,
it is.
You'll see, and they'll only do their big 3 lifts. And then they're like, all right, well, I'm going to go home. No, nothing afterward, nothing to improve all those, you know, accessory muscles. And I think that's super important for anything, is to make sure that you're doing that too.
Or just doing accessories without intention. Yeah. Like, you can do accessories and go through the motion, but if you're not intentionally doing it and like having if you can explain to me exactly why you're doing this lat pull down the way that you're doing it, then it's like, okay, well, how is that going to translate to your lats being locked in on a deadlift?
Exactly.
Or something like that.
Yeah. And you know, you think if you've got that one big lift and then you've got 4 accessory movements, and that one big lift is the only one you pay attention to, then the other 80% of your workout is just, you know, the bulk of your workout you just kind of done without intent or without, you know. So it's like, okay, treat everything the same. Treat everything the same, you know, because those accessories, if somebody, and I know like Andrew does a lot of programming for other powerlifters and takes care of that, and I know the way he stacks his accessories and stuff, like you're trying to assist that person with their particular needs for that big movement. Yeah. All right. Like, okay, out of the hole on that squat, his knees are caving in. We need to work on his abductors. Yep. His hips are weak. Okay. Or you see these little things, you know, and you want to stack those accessories accordingly to help prevent issue farther down the road. Yes. It's like, yeah, you can handle that now, but as we increase, that's going to exaggerate and magnify those weaknesses that we've not touched on prior to you getting to this weight.
So, you know, a lot of times with powerlifters too, like if I see a weak hip, I've got to figure out, are his hips weak, or can he just not feel his hips? Does he not know what that even feels like? Because I mean, like, you know, it's very unnatural to be wide stanced or to externally rotate and like sit down in the bottom hole of a squat. Like, you're never really going to do that in real life other than, you know, learning to squat heavy weights. So a lot of times it's like, I could give you glute bridges. Okay. But if your knees are in and we're not externally rotating and really flexing the glutes, it's like, well, then we're not getting out of it what we really need to.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that's the mechanics there and feeling those muscles. Like it all ties in, you know, like once you understand the mechanics, it's like, okay, well, then you start to feel the muscle, or you feel the muscle, and then you understand the mechanics to it. It's like, there's a lot to think about. Powerlifting is, you know, especially when you watch somebody on an elite level like Andrew do it, you know, you realize how technical it is and how technical it should be.
How it just should be. I think a lot of people skip out on a lot of those parts and don't really understand it.
It's a skill-based sport. It is. I swear by it. It's more skill than it is strength, because everybody has like this level of strength, but your skill dictates how much of that you can really show.
Yes.
Yeah, you'll see somebody, you just, you know, Olympic lifting, you can really see it too. Like, Olympic lifting is extremely technical.
I see some of the guys there and I'm like, I don't think they can get the weight. And it's like, that's the one winning.
Yeah, they are so good at applying every bit of energy and strength into that bar. Yeah. And it's just, you know, and that's it, you know.
Watching those little Chinese guys squat high bar, like 700 pounds is just unbelievable because they'll be like, you know, 180 pounds.
I think they find them when they're kids though. And they can see like their biomechanical structure and they're like, oh yeah, this one. Of course, we're going to train you for it. Yeah.
And that's it too. You know, like finding with those genetic, you know, those genetic traits that we'd look for, you know, you find the little guy, he's like, okay, well, he's got shallow hip sockets and he can squat till his hips touch his ankles with a narrow stance. Yep. Okay. He's going to be a great Olympic lifter.
Yep. We'll start training them for it. Yeah. That's crazy.
It's really, whenever you see somebody who has those genetic gifts and you couple that with proper coaching and technical ability and so on, and it's truly impressive. Oh, yeah. Like, you see a big clean and jerk or something, to me, that's one of the most impressive things in the strength world. It really is.
Yeah. I've always watched that and I've been impressed by it because it's just something that I feel like takes a lot, like we said, skill and training and being very particular with everything you do. So,
Joe Clark that I work with, he and Chewy own Derby City MMA and Derby City Barbell, but Joe is a national level Olympic lifter, and the U.S. Olympic team coach would program his Olympic lifts, and then I would do his accessories and his diet. But man, watching him do that stuff, it's like, okay, he is just so precise, you know. And whenever he's moving those things, like, it's honestly, if you don't understand it, even you don't realize what all's going into it. But those body mechanics have to be so perfect to move that amount of weight in those paths, because that bar is going forever. Like, it's not just like, you know, pressing it to arm's length. Like, it's going from the floor to overhead. Yeah. You know, there's so much room for error there.
Yeah, I can see that. So, Andrew, another question for you before we close out today. What did you eat after your show?
Oh. I smoked like 4 or 5 Mr. Pibbs, and my damn belly got so distended that I realized that I can't eat a whole lot. It was bad. I mean, we went to Longhorn. Went to Longhorn. I had an appetizer, and I drank them Pibbs, and I was like, I was in distress.
I think it's funny because after a show, like, you think of all the stuff that you wanted to eat, but then sometimes you're like, oh, okay, I can't eat as much as I used to.
We were sitting at Longhorn. He got a Mr. Pibb, and I look over and it's gone. He gets another one, and I was like, it's gone. I was like, brother, you ain't gonna feel so good.
Dude, you were right. You nailed that one, because I was so bad. We were trying to drive home, and like, I get to like London, and finally I pull over. I told Cheyenne and my wife, I said, you're gonna have to finish this off. I was like, I can't do this anymore.
I drank a whole 2 liter.
I was broke from sucking eggs on that. It's like, I'm a zero guy from here on out now.
Oh man,
which I should have done. I said, you know, I ordered my drink first, and I was like, well, I've been drinking Dr. Pepper Zeros, you know, every once in a while, so, you know, I'll just get a Pibb. But I said that it won't make a big difference. Yeah. And then, you know, he's like, well, we just get Diet Coke. I was like, I should probably done that, or just got a water. And see, I learned a valuable lesson that day.
Hey, with the first show, when you come out of it, you always learn a valuable lesson. I remember my first show, I like a bunch of fucking donuts and stuff like that. And I went ham on those afterwards. And I remember there were like competitors backstage and they're like, oh man, you shouldn't do that. And I'm like, I should have listened to y'all. Like,
well, the worst one was the first free meal the weekend after. So there's like an Italian joint back where I live. And he's like, go have your free meal. I'm like, cool, sweet. So I hadn't had this Italian place in months. Mm-hmm. So I went and normally I'd get 1 plate. I got like 3. Yeah. And I didn't realize how much I could eat. Like,
it's like you're a bottomless pit.
I'm like sitting there trying to watch Tennessee, Arkansas, and Sean's like, what's wrong? Like, they're losing. Like, I get it. You're upset. And I'm like, I don't want you to touch me. I don't want anybody to touch me. I feel terrible right now. It's just like, what's wrong? So just go to the bathroom or something. I was like, I can't do anything right now.
I've had people after a show we'll go out to eat and they'll eat so much they'll go puke and then they'll come back and eat more. And I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, I'm like, you got to slow down. Like, I know you're hungry, but fuck.
Yeah. My first prep, I didn't know much about anything. And my coach, he did his best to help me, but his knowledge base at that time was dated. He was an older guy and so on. But he didn't want me to eat salt, which is dangerous. I had no caffeine really. And we didn't do refeeds. We didn't do carb backloading. I mean, I was eating boiled chicken and white rice.
Yep.
And, so like every prep since then has seemed, not nearly as bad. But after the show, like, dude, I went out and I got some pizza and I got just like some soda for the first time and ever. And that caffeine from it hit me. And dude, I didn't even sleep that night. Like I was just amped. I ate some ice cream. I was like cleaning the house and dude, I had like fights on the TV. I'm screaming at the TV, cleaning the house, washing dishes. I'm just like, I was gone.
It's like your first Adderall.
I'm telling you.
It's crazy what can happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Andrew, man, we appreciate you coming up.
Hey, thank y'all for
thank you for coming.
And,
I appreciate it.
If people want to follow you on social media, where can they find you?
Mainly just on Instagram. It's just Andrew Tindal. It's all under or lowercase, no spaces, just my name.
Yeah, so, that's the best way to do it. I do that too.
Yeah, keep it simple. Keep it nice and simple.
That's it, man.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
I appreciate it.
This has been Bedson and Coffey Unfiltered. Thank you guys for listening.
Make sure to go follow us on social media.